who gets to get up.
That's right.
If he gets up, we'll all get up. It'll be anarchy.
You having? It's just your standard regular lunch, I guess.
Milk?
Soup. Oh, that's apple juice.
I can read. PB&J with the crusts cut off. Well, Brian, this is a very nutritious lunch. All the food groups are represented. Did your mom marry Mr. Rogers?
No, Mr. Johnson.
Huh. What are you babbling about?
Well, what I had said was I'm in the math club, the Latin club, and the physics club.
Hey, Jerry. Do you belong to the physics club?
That's an academic club.
So?
So academic clubs aren't the same as other kinds of clubs.
Ah, but the dorks like him, they are. What do you guys do in your club?
In physics, well, we talk about physics, properties of physics.
So it's sort of social. Demented and sad, but social, right?
Yeah, well, I guess you could consider it a social situation. I mean, there are other children in my club. And, at the end of the year, we have a big banquet at the Hilton.
You load up, you party.
Well, no, we get dressed up. I mean, but we don't get high.
Only burners like you get high.
And I didn't have any shoes, so I had to borrow my dad's. It was kind of weird because my mom doesn't like me to wear other people's shoes. And my cousin Kendall from Indiana, he got high once. You know, he started eating like really weird foods, and then he just felt like he didn't belong anywhere. You know, kind of like Twilight Zone kind of.
What do you know about trigonometry? I could care less about trigonometry.
Bender, did you know without trigonometry there'd be no engineering?
Without lamps, there'd be no light.
Okay.
Hello, hello. I'm Katie, and welcome to Retromade, your pop culture rewind. It is season 2, and I hope that you feel like you're in for an epic ride because I am. It's John Hughes, Shermer High and Beyond this season. Friend of the show, welcoming back Ryan. Thank you so much for joining me to open season 2 of Retromade. What is new with you? What's going on in your world of podcasting?
My world of podcasting. Well, as maybe some of your listeners know, but of course, Katie and I, we do a bi-weekly Rocky podcast. We're on season 5, movie 5, Rocky 5. Halfway through the film, maybe. It's shaping up to be the longest season of One More Round by far. Anyways, if you're a Rocky fan, that's really the best podcast out there that covers Rocky. I don't care if anyone's listening to that thinks otherwise. It just is the best Rocky podcast that covers Rocky. It's called One More Round, the Rocky series podcast. And I also do another podcast. I'll just plug this one. It's called The Worst of the Best Podcast. You've been on it a couple times. I'm definitely going to have you on again. I do most of the episodes with my brother, but he can't make every recording, so I do look out for guest hosts. It's basically where we just aggregate a best of topic list. We just dropped an episode today at the time of this recording about predictions in history that didn't age well. So these are bad predictions of history that didn't age well. Then we picked, so these are the best, worst, if that makes sense. And then we picked which one we really think was the biggest. Oof, that's a bad prediction that did not age well. So yeah, it's those kind of topics. So it's a fun one to do.
My prediction?
Pain.
Yes.
You guys are all over the place. Yes, we're terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like the worst of the best a lot. Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you.
Because it's very.
That's one listener. Yeah, that's the thing about it. So yeah, we do a very focused Rocky podcast. If you're not a Rocky fan, you're probably not listening to that show at all. And why would you? But the worst of the best, what's good about it is that there are a variety of topics, but we try to make it such where every week's a wholly different topic, and we try to make it where even if you don't know the topic, that's the point. You're learning as you're listening. We give very brief whatever descriptions of whatever the topic is, but then you're kind of learning, and the fun thing is you as the listener will also have your own picks what you think is the worst. I don't know, I think it's fun. I do like it too. Yeah,
it's fun. I listen whenever they come out.
You're a sweetheart. I appreciate it.
Well, we do have a listener email that I wanted to bring up before we open the time capsule. This one is from Scott from all 90s action all the time. He was very kind, congratulating me on my first season. He says, "Hi, Katie. Just thought I'd send you a quick congratulate you on wrapping up season 1 of your podcast, which I very much enjoyed throughout. It was very interesting. You highlighting all of the similarities between Kurt and Patrick on the wrap-up episode. Also, despite not having previously considered them to be close in looks, I can definitely see it more now." I'm glad that happened, Scott. He says, "Oh yeah, I
please.
meant to also say on the fatherhood episode, you and your guest were debating where the Proclaimers were from and doing when we were doing the music chart stuff. And I can confirm that they come from my hometown of Edinburgh, Scotland."
Oh, Scotland. Okay. Yeah. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for the email. If you want to be like Scott, and you should send me an email at retromadepodcast@gmail.com. Okay. As I mentioned in the trailer for season 2, I have mixed up. We have a new format that we're going to try out, Ryan, for the time capsule. So should we get to opening the time capsule from February 15th, 1985? This is 40. This is the 40th anniversary.
Jeez.
40. So.
I'm old.
Well, we're all old, and that's why we do Retromade, because we can think back. So I have come up with some different categories for the time capsule, and we're going to spin to choose one. And then I'm going to ask you trivia questions.
Oh, okay.
To see, test your retro knowledge. Okay.
All right.
We're going to spin it.
Hey, do the listeners get to play at home?
Yes. Okay. We have come to the category totally tasty. That's what we spun. Okay. All right, Ryan, let's see.
So it's a food question, I presume?
Yes, totally tasty. I have several questions. Let me see. Which 1980s snack introduced a zesty salad dressing inspired flavor in a crunchy tortilla chip, making it a fan favorite?
So what's the brand of chip?
Yeah, it's a snack. What is it?
Well, the Doritos chips.
But what kind?
Oh,
these were, this is stuff relative to 1985.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, American and Canadians have different snack items. Our candy bars for example, are different. You notice how I said candy bars? Because in Canada we call them chocolate bars. But so give me a hint. Sorry, is it a chip or is it like Bugles or is it something like that?
No, you were right with Doritos. You were right, okay. But it's a flavor of Dorito.
Ranch style flavor chips, Doritos, or is it the zesty cheese one?
What's it called? You know how there's multiple flavors of Doritos? What do they call it?
Boy, did I say it's not called? Was it something ranch? Right?
Yeah. There's one Cool Ranch.
People at home, they're yelling. Yeah, of course. And I love Doritos. I just don't eat them anymore. Try to stay healthy.
Yes, but this is when you were a kid. Weren't you 10 years old at this time?
You know what's funny? Yes, Doritos? I was. Yes, thank you for aging me publicly. No, just funny. Yes, I was 10 years old in 85. And I don't think Doritos came, or they weren't really popularized until I was like a teenager. I think they probably obviously came to the States first, but if they were in Canadian stores, my parents never bought them. Let me rephrase that. I may have bought my own Doritos when I had my own money, when I started delivering newspapers or working at a restaurant. So anyways, of course, Cool Ranch dressing. And how could I forget that? Because it's literally a line from a Guns N' Roses song that came out. Axl Rose says that in the song. And any GNR fan that might be listening to this is yelling at me because I'm a big GNR fan. Because there's literally a line. Because he actually says in the song, it's pretty tied up. There you go. See? He says, Cool Ranch dressing. Anyway, it's like, how could I forget that? So shame on me.
Well, so yeah, the snack that was introduced was Cool Ranch Doritos. All right, let's spin it again. That was not very good. Let's see what else we got.
Oh, jeez.
Let's see.
Terrible.
Ooh, it's on the line. VHS Vault is the category. Let's see what we have here. What can I ask you? Okay. There are 5 choices. Let's see how many you can get. The top 5 video rentals. 1985. The whole year, 1985. I'll give you hints.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Let's see how many of the top 5 for the whole year you can list. Here's your hint. Martial arts, sci-fi action, slapstick comedy, jungle adventure, and college pranks. Those were the ingredients of the top 5 rentals in 85. Can you name them?
Okay, so we'll say the first one again, just the first category. I'll just guess like that. Go by category.
Martial arts.
85 martial arts, Karate Kid.
Yes. Sci-fi action.
Oh, VHS rentals. This is tricky because I know a movie comes out
VHS
one
rentals.
year.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Well, I know Terminator came in in 84, so maybe the rental was 85.
You are correct. The Terminator is the number 2.
Okay.
Okay. Slapstick comedy.
Slapstick comedy. This one's gonna be a little bit tricky because there's so many 80s
Right.
comedies. It's ridiculous. I know. I'm just gonna go with. I don't like the term slapstick, but I'm gonna go with Vacation. But I think
Police
Vacation's
Academy.
Police.
It
That
was
is
Police
slapstick.
Academy.
Yep, you're right about the slapstick. And I think the original Vacation might be earlier. I think it's like 83, 84. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's
You
legit.
got 2 more.
Yeah, that's legit.
You're doing
Yeah,
pretty
sorry.
good. How are you doing at home, you guys? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Jungle Adventure.
Romance in the
Fourth clue.
Stone.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies of all time. And College Pranks.
College Pranks. I know this is going to be. Can you? At this point, I don't know the prank part. A prank movie. Like I guess pranks like hijinks. Is that what that means? Maybe hijinks, vice pranks. Because pranks is when you play trick on somebody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
When you
It
play
is.
trick on
And
somebody.
that's accurate.
Okay, maybe just give me I know it's a cheat, but give me a cheat. What's the actors? One of the actors' names. Top. I know it's a cheat, but I don't
Anthony
know.
Edwards is one of the actors.
Oh, really? Oh, something like I know it's not Weird Science, but it's something like that.
Not Anthony Michael Hall, Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I know the guy from ER, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Top
Do you give
Gun,
up?
of course.
All
Yeah,
right,
I
at
give
home,
up this
I
one.
hope you know it. I hope you know it.
I haven't seen it.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, I have seen. I've seen that movie like literally maybe once. It's funny about 80s comedies. Those type of comedies, even now and then or whatever it was, and I, like you said, I was 10 years old when that came out. So even when I became a teenager, I could rent those R-rated comedies. I watched them when I was younger. But the point is, I never thought they were that funny. I don't even think Animal House. Ooh, I know. Don't say it, Ryan. I don't think Animal House is as funny as people think it is. I never thought it was that kind of funny. Now, I admit, I like the Naked Gun films. I thought those were funny.
Well, I would categorize those as 2 different genres. I think Revenge of the raunchy comedy versus
that's what it is. It's just
satirical.
Look, we're looking at a girl in a bra. Ha, ha, ha,
Yeah.
ha, I gotta get
But that
laid.
was
It's
a lot in the 80s. There was a lot of that
Well, they resurged it
raunchiness.
with the American Pie films, and I admit I
Yeah.
watched them because it was like that resurgence. I guess maybe I'm a prude, but which I'm really
No.
not. But sex humor, though it's funny, it's just when the whole premise is we have to get laid. It gets
It's beneath you because you are
No.
a film. Truly, because you are a film connoisseur, you're like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. I just
But I
enjoy
would rather
Romance in the
have-
Storm, Romance in the Stone, more Terminator, or of course the original Vacation films. Those types of films, I just like that kind of humor better. That's all.
hmm
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I do. I mean, in rewatching Revenge of the Nerds now, your mind will be blown at how inappropriate a lot.
I love that.
That's maybe not.
And I
the
love
right.
that. I love
Meaning,
that. It's
there's literally a rape scene,
Oh, that's.
but it was funny, and like that. Like that kind of stuff. You're like, oh shit, when you watch it now. But I remember it. I remember thinking it was funny.
Oh, sure, it's hilarious.
Yeah, Revenge of the Nerds.
Essay is always a fun thing to laugh at.
Yeah, isn't it? Oh my god. Okay,
I
let's
know
do one
those
more.
films
Ryan.
back then. It's weird. It's weird, and I'm glad we've changed as a culture. But it's weird how we made that a bit of a comedy thing. Watching
What
girls.
passed
Yeah, just
as-
actually just watching girls change without their knowledge is actually you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That's actually a crime.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
how funny is that? There's a people in the locker room.
It's people.
Oy.
All right.
One more, Ryan, do you think?
All right.
You think
Yeah,
we got
sure,
time for one more? Okay.
This is fun. I could play every one of these. I think this is great. I'm just not as good as I had hoped I'd be.
Ooh, that's on the line. It's back in the headlines, you guys. Let's see. I'll give you a couple because some of them are pretty easy. In 1985, who became the General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union?
Was that Gorbachev?
Mikhail Gorbachev. Good job. Let's do maybe one more. In 1985, which criminal known for a string of terrorizing crimes in California was finally apprehended after eluding authorities for months?
Is that the Summer of Sam?
No.
Is
You
that
have
it?
another guess?
Oh.
85, California.
I'm actually, I do enjoy true crime too. I know what you're gonna say, and I'll be like, oh yes, of course. Just again, just like there's so many teen comedy films in the 80s. There's so many serial
It's hard
killers.
to pull them out of nowhere.
I know.
Yeah.
Like I know almost all the stories, but the timelines I might get. I know he entered people. I think he went into someone's garage at one point. What was this guy's name?
Yeah, the community helped
that's
capture
right.
him. Richard Ramirez.
That's right. That's right. He was scary looking. He's scary looking, that guy. Yeah, I even know what he looks like. I just forgot the year. Yep. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Yeah. Scary. He was a scary guy. He's one of the scary ones.
I mean, as serial killers,
I know they're all scary. No, but I mean, even Ted Bundy isn't scary. Like you don't.
He looks like a normal person.
Yeah, that's what. In a way, that's almost more scary because he just blends in. But yeah, Ramirez looks like a killer. Like he just looks like I kill people. Sure you do. I bet you do.
All right, Ryan. What do you think about the new segment and format?
Well, I could play the whole episode like this. I mean, I love trivia. I love. I'm not very good. Well, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. But I mean, I pride myself a little bit when it comes to this timeline of stuff and movies, and I do fairly well. Like I do fairly okay, but I love it. I think it's a great segment. I can't wait to play it home myself and then yell at the other hosts who are on the spot and say, I know so much more than they do. So
I will say it requires a lot more research on my end to have 12 questions ready for 12 segments. But anyway, you guys at home, let me know what you think. Do you like the trivia version? Do you like the wheel spinning? Let me know. Okay, Ryan, we're going to be talking about The Breakfast Club today. 1985, February 40th anniversary. But
wow, 40 years.
How did you first discover John Hughes films? Do you have any history with him, or what do you think?
Just natural history. I was like I said, I was born in 75, and so I was of the age. I saw the films not knowing John Hughes per se, because even when I was young, I kind of knew, it's Steven Spielberg. I think I've heard of him. But I saw all the films that these guys did, So it wasn't until I got a little bit older, my teens, and became more of that. Like you said, I've watched movies my whole life. I've devoured movies, but when I became a young teen and started actually getting film almanac type books, well before Wikipedia and for the internet, I would get the yearly. I forgot what they're called. It's like Roger Ebert had one.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, they're like these, and they're film review books. So I would buy them yearly, and they'd have the actors in the back. It'd tell you every movie they were in or what page number it was on. And so I look up, Tom Cruise was in this film. I didn't know that. I would go to the movie store to rent that was your IMDb. There you go. That was your IMDb back in the day. It was these big books you would buy to find what movies your favorite actors had been in. There's different brands, but the idea, I bought them every year for a few years. And I also was a subscriber to Entertainment Weekly. I'm a young teen, and I actually got my own subscription to that magazine. So I was a huge movie nut. This is all pre-internet. This is how you got your. Hey kids, this is how we did it back in the day. It was all on paper. That's how we got our information. It was on paper. And I used to watch Entertainment Tonight on TV. I'd watch Siskel and Ebert, of course, every weekend. Okay, I say all that. So regarding John Hughes, I was younger, so I'd watched all the films. The big ones on your list that you sent me, and there was a couple that you sent me to choose from, but I never even heard of that film. So his filmography is much bigger than I ever would have thought without looking into it. So yes, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink. I saw all those, as a young kid. Of course, Molly Ringwald was like every young boy's crush. She was that cutie patootie that we enjoyed as young men. So yeah, I saw them. Oh, Uncle Buck, all that stuff for sure. Yeah.
On
and on. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the movie, The Breakfast Club. '40th anniversary, you guys. How does that grab you? February 15th, 1985.
Wow.
Now, I did find something interesting about this. John Hughes actually wrote The Breakfast Club that came out in 1985 before he wrote 16 Candles that came out in 84. But the studio was concerned that The Breakfast Club would be, that it's a drama. It's, completely filmed in-house featuring just talking. So they wanted him to do something more tried and true. So something along the lines of National Lampoon's Animal House. So he wrote 16 Candles. And ironically, 16 Candles wasn't as successful, both commercially and critically. And The Breakfast Club was a hit, as we will get into. So I just thought that was really interesting.
That. It is interesting, but I got a couple theories and reasons. So this is interesting that you bring this up because 16 Candles, it was a little bit more, maybe had a little bit more of that humor that studios in the 80s were looking for, because I know Breakfast Club, that's the one thing they didn't like about it. Not just what you just said there, but there wasn't enough boobs and things like that. That was the big thing about the 80s. Oh, like flashing scenes of topless girls running around. And it just goes to show you, I'm not going to say, like, look at me being, like, you're talking about being a bit of a film connoisseur. The public does agree with me. This film, over time, has shown you that people are talking about Breakfast Club in a reverent manner, so to speak, over the decades, more than they are about Nerds. I think people think Revenge of the Nerds is a better film than it is. That's when, objectively, you can't say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it influenced a lot of other garbage kind of raunchy teen comedies. Nothing really objectively film quality good came out of that string of genre films. I know people got a kick out of it. I just say all that because, we'll get into covering the film. I just really appreciate this film for that reason, that it came out in a time where John Hughes said, hey, I understand the studios, you're saying this is what you think the box office wants, or whatever it is, what people want. And it just kind of goes to show you that maybe that wasn't always the case. There was an audience as well. Maybe as well, there was an audience that wanted this type of film, because this is a film you can watch 40 years later and with your kids today. This is a film. I'd be a couple curse words. Who cares? We swear in our home. So it's just, this is a very good film, and I appreciate that John made this film.
I agree. And to your point, it is rated R, which is the only one of that first trilogy of teen films of his, which is interesting because there's not nudity in this. 16 Candles actually had nudity and implied rape in it, and it was only rated PG. And this is R.
More rape, eh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a whole thing in the 80s. Now,
I haven't seen that movie
enough,
in a long time. That's why the Pretty in Pink 16 Candles, it's probably been since the 80s that I've seen those films, just FYI.
Well, it's implied. They don't show anything.
Right, of course.
But And then this movie, there were things that were originally either planned or filmed that were taken out. For example, there was nudity. There was a gym teacher that they were going to show nude, and they took it out. Things like that. So I found that interesting. It does have a 7.8 on IMDb, which wholeheartedly agree. This is an excellent film. There's only a handful of movies that we're going to talk about on this season where John both directed and wrote, and this is one of them. He was the director and the writer. Did you see that this is one of those stories? And I believe it, but you know how a lot of times they're like, oh, like the Rocky story, he wrote it in one day or something.
Right.
But apparently, John Hughes did write this screenplay in 2 days over the July 4th weekend in 1982.
I believe it, but like all films, there was on the set revisions. There's no way what we saw on the screen. But yes, I would say 60 to, I'll even say maybe 80% of the film was written. Somebody like John Hughes, who's a writer, storyteller, they just get it. They get it out. People are like that. They just get it out of their system. But as the production gets greenlit and goes on, and because I know things were changed on the fly. I mean, there was on the fly stuff that happened during the filming that was not in the script. What do you call improv in the film itself? So yeah.
Well, I probably don't need to. This is probably like the movie I don't need to read a description for, because I assume everybody has seen this multiple times. But if it's been 40 years for you, or in case you haven't seen it, The Breakfast Club follows 5 high school students from different cliques: Claire, the princess; Andrew, the athlete; Bender, the criminal; Brian, the brain; and Allison, the basket case, who are forced to spend a Saturday in detention together. Initially, they clash due to their social differences, but as the day progresses, they open up about their struggles, insecurities, and pressures from parents and peers. Through deep conversations and shared experiences, they form an unexpected bond, realizing that they are more alike than they thought. By the end of the day, they leave detention changed, unsure if their newfound connection will survive outside the school walls.
Can I pat myself on the back? I rarely brag, but I like to brag every now and then. I haven't seen this movie in a while, so it's been I don't know.
Okay.
Like I don't rewatch a lot of films in general. I just don't have time, especially as my life has gone on and my family's gone bigger and my job in the military. So it's hard for me when I have free time. I try to just watch something new because I like to watch something new. But it's been a while, and as I was watching the film and watching the characters talk and everything, it dawned on me. Well, not of course, but I mean it's obvious. But at the same time, what I liked about it is what I should say is that it brought me back to being a teenager myself, and I'll get to that because I think this is what everyone does when they watch this film. They go back to themselves. Who were you? Where did you identify within this group of, yes, they're caricatures and it's very, very cut and dry what each of these people represent in high school personalities or groups of social groups. But I was the essay, meaning at the end of the film when they have the essay and it basically says, oh, we're everybody. We're all the same. We're all parts of each other. That was me. That was actually me in high school. I was a bit of a nerd, but I also dressed preppy, but I was also playing rugby. I also listened to heavy metal and rock and roll. So I fit all these categories I did all those things. And I was the guy that, your individual, that was able to associate with all those groups that exist: skaters, the punks, the jocks, the nerds. But Ryan himself, I was able to hang out and talk to all those groups. I don't know why, but so I was the essay at the end. I just always lived that way. I never had an identity because I just enjoyed whatever. I enjoyed that sport. I enjoyed that kind of music. I enjoyed, trying to do well in school or stay out of trouble, that kind of personality. I wasn't a bad boy, but like the Judd Nelson character, yeah, I liked probably the music he would listen to. So all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. So it just reminded me of my own childhood and youth. Oh yeah, I identify with all these people. But then they did too. And that was the whole message. But
it is. Yeah. And I think that's why this movie, I mean, there are a number of reasons, but I think that's one of the reasons this resonates with people so much is because I would argue most people, I mean, I think that's, to your point, that's kind of the point of the movie. Most of us, myself included, we identify, very few people are just the popular cliquey girl. Very few people are just the jock, So we all identify.
But talk, that was the thing. They would separate themselves. And that's what they found in this situation is, we're forced to get to know each other. We find out we're more much the same. It's not to get all like hoity-toity about the world, but isn't that what the world is kind of like? We divide with borders and race and creed and sexuality. When you get down to it, we probably have a lot more in common than the perceived differences if we just sat and had a conversation with each other.
100%. If you spend time with somebody who's different from you, granted, these are all white kids, but sure. Whatever it is, you other different groups, whatever they are, and you only find out a lot of times people as you grow, as you mature, you realize everybody's just human. And there's so many good messages.
With differences.
Yeah.
It's okay to be different, but with those differences, we can learn from each other. And I think that's the wonderful message about this film. This is why it's a timeless film. So yes, it's a teenage characters in a high school, but once you get past the set that they're using and the ages of the characters, it's actually just a universal language and experience. Yeah, it's beautifully done. It's really kind of amazing that this was made when it was made, that it can be looked at so many different levels. It's actually a much deeper film than I even remembered until my rewatch recently. Yeah.
Very well put, Ryan. Let's talk about our cast, and it's very small, which is unusual. There's really, 7 people in this? That's it.
More or less, yeah. The kids, the janitor, and the principal.
Not
principal. Was he the principal?
Well,
or was he?
We'll talk about that. Okay. We will talk about that. But I think Emilio Estevez plays the sporto, Andrew Clark. And what did you think? So in me growing up, like our school didn't have wrestling, but I learned that John Hughes had originally wrote him as a football player, but that was so overused that he made him a wrestler instead. I really
it.
liked that.
I love that they actually used it within the film when he takes on the bully. I love that this wrestler, and of course, sorry, I already forgot the character's name, so I apologize. Judd Nelson played, the character's name was
John
Bender. So, well, we'll just use the actor's name. So when Emilio and Judd face off with each other to have an actual physical altercation, what I liked about it, how realistic it was. Like, yeah, this guy's actually a trained grappler. So if you want to, even though he's shorter, maybe a little bit smaller in stature, but if this guy grapples with you and he's trained to do it, and he took him down really quickly, and he said, like, is this what you want? Like, I will humiliate you all day. But then, of course, his character draws the knife, and Emilio's like, oh, well, that's where you're going. That's a wholly different level. So I like those really real moments of that dangerous feeling in that, oh, he's drawing a knife. He's literally bringing a knife to a wrestling fight. And it's like, okay, well, now I can't do that. But it was a lot of great little moments like that, which are, again, just fantastic real life situations with two guys fighting, and the one guy gets humiliated. So he goes, yeah, I'm going to now draw a gun on a knife fight type thing. It's like, ooh, okay, well, now there's a whole different level of violence.
And the way that they layered humor on top of those situations, the way he's, the tough guy, what Bender says, I don't want to go there with you, man, because I'd kill you. Then he puts the knife in the table, and Allison, just like off screen, we see her pull it up. It's just, they layer
and
humor.
We never reinvestigate that. We never like, she takes the knife. Is it ever, does he ever realize his knife is gone? Or
I don't know if it was in her bag later when she empties her bag, but you're right.
I wonder if that was even scripted. That's the other thing. Was that an improv for Ali Sheedy just to take the knife out of the chair?
Could have been. As to your point, Ryan, there was a ton. So John Hughes let these guys, his actors, ad lib, and a ton of that made it into the movie.
I think it was them fooling around. I think she just took the knife, and John's like, I like that. And just don't re-explore where the knife is. Just, it is what it is.
Well, that's our second person, is John Bender. He's the criminal. He's played by Judd Nelson. And I did read that his clothes, his outfit in the movie is what he wore when he auditioned.
Now, you probably are going to talk about it. Did you read about him and Mr. Hughes?
I did, yes. Yeah, have at it.
Well, I didn't know about this. If I knew about it, I'd forgotten. Wow, talk about one of the biggest Hollywood riffs in history. So on the set, Judd, who was 24 at the time.
25.
25, okay. Yep. 25 at the time, give or take. Yeah, so 24, 25. And Molly Ringwald was she was younger than I thought she was. She was only 16, so she couldn't even work full days. So there's some behind the headshots was her stand-in because she had to go to school. So Molly was 16, legally a minor, and Judd would mistreat her in character off, like when they're not filming, he would stay in character and still be a dick towards Molly. And John Hughes was very protective of Molly Ringwald as an older gentleman and like this young teenager, and he, as a muse in a way, wanted Molly to be protected. So he felt very protective of her. So he told Judd, hey, cool your heels, man. Like, you don't have to be this way. Judd's like, I'm going to be this way. And it took the actor who played the principal to convince John to keep Judd around despite, the behavior. And as years went on, though, John was so still put off by it. He allowed the filming to finish, but he hated the whole experience with Judd, that he never worked with Judd again. And like, they never reconciled ever.
That's accurate.
So I guess, I don't know if this shows more the character of John. Like, I find the more I read about John and some of his, we'll get to Molly and his treatment with her too. Yeah, like,
and Anthony Michael Hall too. Like those two.
I missed that one. So you tell me about that one. I didn't read about that one. So is John the problem? A little bit.
I mean, he was young. He was like 30-ish.
But years go on, though. I admit,
right,
I made choices when I was young that I would not do today, of course. But if I ever saw so and so, and I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, and I've done that actually. Like that, I was young and stupid, and I don't feel that way now, right? And I'm just surprised after decades, there was no, oh man, we're just young, and there was a crazy moment, or like you were young. Like Judd's only 24. That's young,
right?
I thought I knew everything. I didn't know anything at 24 compared to now. So Yeah, it's weird that they never reconciled. They held on to it.
Both a bit of an ego, probably. And I mean, it's, like we were talking offline, sometimes people just rub you the wrong way. And he was like, I just have no desire to work with him again. But you're right. I think Judd's character, John Bender, as we'll talk about, there are so many classic, memorable lines and one-liners, and the dialogue in this is just excellent. But I would say 75% of what made me laugh was Bender's lines. Like, Judd was really good as Bender. So
okay, so you know what's interesting here? This is gonna be a hot take. I enjoyed his performance the least. By far.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's weird. I don't know. It's because you can say, "Oh, Ryan, he's playing his character so well." I'm like, yeah, but I've seen movies with jerks and bullies and stuff. I get it. One of the people that was almost cast, like if Judd didn't exist as an entity, if he just never existed, John Cusack was scheduled to play, and I really like John, and I think he would have done a great job. And Nicolas Cage was actually scheduled to do it as well. There's talks that he would have done a great job.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage. I think Nicolas Cage is another good example of somebody who could have done that role of but the lovable, troubled at the same time that you can get. I never got behind him. I just thought, oh man, you're just irritating. I found him irritating, not enjoyable at all.
Well, he's supposed to be.
But it's hard to explain. I know, but
I
think it was his performance. I think it was, honestly, objectively, I think it was Judd's performance. I think the dialogue was great. I think the story arc was fine. That's all John's writing. Maybe I'm Team John a little bit. Maybe he just, he kind of saw, I don't know. I think John Cusack would have been a better.
Well, I mean, you're entitled to feel that way. I guess,
of course.
Yeah. There are things that each one of them does that kind of, like the actors, they're young, like they either overdid it or weren't that great, but the dialogue that was written for them was excellent. I do very much. I think Judd Nelson emulates that tough guy. I mean, he's like a grown ass man too, though. Like, who's buying him as a teenager? But
yeah, but you remember
I hate Nicolas
Outsiders.
Cage. I don't like Nicolas Cage at all. Like, I hate him. So he would have turned me off from this movie.
Okay, so can we?
John Cusack's not tough enough. John Cusack's not tough enough.
But that I would say, give him a chance to do the role.
True.
Maybe he would have.
Yeah. That's true.
Because he's a good actor. He's just acting. Is Judd really a tough guy? He's just acting, right? So I think there's something about Judd's delivery. Nothing about him as an actor is bad. I just found his delivery. You're talking about that over the top. I found that was the majority of his character. Was the things you found.
I guess I meant like the lines. Most of the funny lines were his lines, and he did those well.
He got a lot of
like funny one-liners.
So
he was good at that.
Star of the show. As far as maybe there's more Judd than I remembered. I was like, oh, there's a lot of Judd.
There is. He was really good at delivering the humor, and I think maybe when he was trying to be more serious, maybe it was overdone.
The scene where he's talking about there's a couple scenes that that really was off-putting, and maybe it's a bit of combination of the writing and the delivery. It was when he's talking about his home life and he's acting his father's part, his mother's part, and his part, reacting the whole like abuse in his home. I was like, okay, this is dragging on, the whole argument, hey dad, you're useless, and he's doing the voices for his dad, his mom, and himself, and he's reenacting this abuse that took place in his home. We're not too sure if it's because Emilio's, did that really happen? But the point is I found the delivery a little bit. If I was actually watching this in the library, like I think this guy's off his meds. Like it was a little bit, I don't know. I think it would have been better delivered had it been a toned down recollection, not a over the top animated, like I'm talking about something serious and violent, but I'm being so kind of silly about it that I don't know. I think it would have been a better direction would have been to tell the story, but to keep it like, I don't know. Anyways, I found that part off-putting for some reason.
Interesting. I mean, I can see your point. I think at that point in the movie, we're still easing into these characters. And I think it was purposeful that he was so animated, because that's what made because they showed everybody else's reaction to it. And they're like, holy shit, And then Claire tells Andrew, you shouldn't have said that. And he's like, how was I supposed to know this guy was so, and the meds, I mean, he probably needed medication and
probably
was never.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so, but let's say won't get mad at me because I know I always say things that are usually not what everyone thinks. But I just
No, that's the
just how
whole point.
well, that's just how I felt. I'm not trying to cater to the audience, but however, that's probably my only criticism, really, as I felt he was. Like I said, I enjoyed him the least. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy him at all.
Right,
That's why I
right.
worded I enjoyed. If I was to rank the performances objectively, he had a lot of the film to carry. And when I read the other casting choices, my brain went to the alternate universe with, I kind of think I would like to have seen John in that role more. And then I couldn't get it out of it.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's nobody else I would have recast. I think everyone else is perfectly cast. I'm going to get hate for that. I know Judd was beloved with that character. I understand he had the iconic moment at the end that was improv. All that stuff. I get it. It's fantastic. But yeah.
We will talk more about some of the casting what ifs a little bit later, but just to finalize the main cast here. So Molly Ringwald as Claire Standish. I didn't know she had a last name. I don't think it's ever said,
No,
but
I don't remember. Yeah.
Claire Standish and Ali Sheedy playing Allison Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anthony Michael Hall playing the nerd Brian Johnson. Now, those are our 5 students. All 5 students were members of the bratpack.
Yay.
And apparently, you hear about this, you guys, right? The bratpack. Well, what is it? Where did it come from? Technically, an appearance in either the Breakfast Club and or St. Elmo's Fire is often considered the prerequisites for being a core Brat Pack member. And there was an article written, David Bloom's New York story identified Emilio Estevez as the unofficial president of the Brat Pack.
Agreed.
Because there was that he met up with him and they were telling stories or something like that. The article was written, originally it was just going to be about Emilio. And then they got started talking. And I think maybe Judd came and they got to talking. And so David Bloom decided to change the content of his story about these young Hollywood actors. So yeah, I know you like Emilio, don't you? Young Guns.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I didn't want to step on you. This is your show. I could do a whole episode. I mean, I am like a Young Guns nerd. There's almost as much as I am a Rocky nerd. I kid you not. I could talk about. I even contemplate. I talk about doing a Western podcast. I know I'm still. It's like that. It's like every director or creator has that opus they want to do, but they haven't tackled it because I love Young Guns so much. I want to talk about it, if that makes sense. And I even considered I might just tackle the Young Guns films a la the way I've done the Rocky films. I don't know if I want to rush it. I might want to do a scene by scene discussion of those films, like an actual breakdown, instead of just saying, oh, this is a good film. That's how much I love those films. I might just do a Young Guns 1 and a Young Guns 2 2-season podcast on the Young Guns franchise because I just love it that much. Yeah. And then I could do other Western films, but there's I love the Western genre, but there's so many you could do that podcast for 10 years. So I might think, should I just hyper focus it on the films? Like just, 5 films maybe that I really like and make it 5 seasons long. So Young Guns 1 and 2, Unforgiven, Tombstone, just off the top of my head, something like that. Like just the 5 opus or the Mount Rushmore films in my books that are Westerns. Anyways, the point is, yes, so I'm a Young Guns nerd. And because of that, I have this great affinity and love for Emilio. And I know you could argue again, Emilio's Young Guns films are like his, in many people's books, those are his Rocky films, and that this is his peak character and performance, which they are. But it was interesting watching The Breakfast Club, which came out 2 years before Young Guns 1, 2 to 3 years before, seeing some of his mannerisms and the way he was in talking that he really accentuated in those films as Billy the Kid. So it's kind of cool to see this take off the cowboy gear and all this stuff. And of course, it's just the way Emilio enunciates his word and talks. He's got a really great delivery style. I really like the way he talks. I just like the way he enunciates words and his eyes and the intensity that he can have. And yeah, I just like him. I think he's great. And yeah, I know he's kind of quiet in Hollywood. He directs more now than ever, but I've always enjoyed him.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like a quiet Hollywood. I mean, just
he is
stay
quiet.
Out of trouble. Yeah,
he stays out of trouble. As far as I know, he stays out of trouble. I think he dated. Yeah, he dated Demi Moore for a bit. That's right. I believe that was true.
And Paula Abdul.
Yeah, that's right. That was a longer one, actually. He was with her for a while. Yeah, he's a great guy. He seems like a great guy. I haven't heard anything scandalous or crazy about him. Just a normal human, which I like.
I do too, which is interesting because his brother's the exact opposite.
Yeah. I mean, for those who might not know, yes, there might be someone who his brother is Charlie Sheen, and their dad is Martin Sheen. So
Emilio looks so much like a young Martin.
yeah, more than
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah.
And I will say this too. Did you hear about the actor who played the janitor? The story there.
Carl, the janitor, played by John Capellos. Is it
Yes.
Capellos or Capelos? Anyway,
Sure.
go on.
Well, they were on the set, and he made it. I forget the exact comment, but he made an offhand comment to the kids. Like, he's an older actor, so he's talking to these younger kids, actors, and he's, hey guys, make sure you don't get too wrapped up in your roles, don't get too emotionally involved in your roles. Maybe he was seeing Judd, so maybe he's talking to them as a group or something, because Judd was maybe getting too wrapped up. He goes, because you don't want to be like Martin Sheen, like on Apocalypse Now. And he didn't know that Emilio was the son of Martin. And Emilio freaked out at him, said, that's my dad. And he felt horrible. And Emilio never forgave him on the set or anything like that. Because of course, he's only 22. He's very protective of his dad, icon on screen. And the same actor who played the janitor met Martin later. I think it was on The West Wing, during that time.
Yeah.
And he said, I had this weird encounter with your son. I know it's kind of funny. And Martin just laughed it off. He said, you've been holding on.
Yeah,
to
Martin
too
thought
long.
it was funny. Class act.
Yeah,
I agree.
Class act. Yeah, he was like, oh, this is my son. This is Emilio being a little hot-headed. You're fine. But yeah. So, but the poor guy carried that forever.
I know. I read that and I thought, well, isn't that odd though? Because they look so similar. I mean, I guess the names are different, so maybe he wouldn't.
No internet
but...
back then, and that's why he changed his name. I think Emilio did change his name to keep. I think there's. I don't know the exact reasons. I think it was his mother.
Well, Martin Sheen. Sheen is a stage name.
That's right.
And then Charlie just took his dad's stage name, but Estevez is actually the family name.
It sounds great,
I believe.
Emilio Estevez.
It does. I like it.
Yeah. I have nothing bad to say about Emilio. I never will. You won't get it out of me. I loved his performance. I thought he was great. Emilio was just jealous that Judd got more lines. I was like, come on, give more to Emilio. But he did a great job. I loved it. Yeah. Except for the one scene that even John Hughes says he wished he could take out. You know that scene I'm talking about?
Where the glass breaks when he yells. That dance sequence. There was still some oddities in the dance, like when.
But you know what I chalk it up to?
Emilio.
The glass didn't break. I just chalk it up to it's in his imagination. That's what I. Yeah, it was because he was high. So the glass breaks for the audience, but it's the point of view of the character. That's how I work around that.
Okay, that's good. I like it. That's a good way to explain it.
It's never talked about again. There's no mess. They were not walking on it. It's never spoken of. I think it's just in his mind. He's dancing so incredibly, and he's yelling and dancing so incredibly well that the glass breaks, but it doesn't break, just in his mind.
I thought it was odd that they made him so amped up. Pot does not make you amped up like that. It was like he was doing speed, like an upper instead of a downer.
Well, we don't know. Was this pot laced with something? We don't know.
Well, why would he be the only one that got? Anyway, at any rate,
I love it. I know. I love it when pot is Yeah, I could be wrong. I'm not a pot connoisseur, even though I'm legally allowed to be, if you can believe it. Even the Canadian military, we are allowed to have pot.
Oh, even military folks. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same rules of alcohol. You just can't come to work high if you're.
Oh well, duh. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, but it's legal because it's not legal in the American military still. So they actually had like pot designated smoking areas for the recruits. So when you're on a break and you're not working, it's a weekend, you're allowed to smoke marijuana.
I mean, it's the same. I mean, you're
it's just the same as drinking. Yeah.
Same as having a beer, when you're not
on
duty or whatever. Yeah. So speaking of John Capellos, God, I wish I knew. I should have looked it up. Who knows how this is pronounced? At any rate, he plays Carl the janitor, and he has over 200 credits. So he's in a ton of stuff. Some notable recent stuff. Yeah, he is great. The Umbrella Academy TV series and the Shape of Water movie is some more recent stuff. And then we'll get into some roles that a lot of these actors have in common together. But did you know that he's Canadian?
No, I missed that. Oh, wow. Good for him.
He's born in London, Ontario. And last but not least, we have Paul Gleason, who plays Richard Vernon, the principal, which we will get, or is he? What is he? We'll get to that in a second. But you all probably know Paul Gleason most probably from this, but he was also in Trading Spaces and Arthur. And then he reprised his role as Vernon in 2001's Not Another Teen Movie.
Really? He reprised his role? That's funny.
Molly Ringwald was in it too, I believe.
That was 24 years ago. What is
I know.
going on?
I don't know.
They could make not another teen movie at this point. Like,
Yeah.
it's
the 2000s version of a teen
because
movie.
85 to 2001 is only 16 years. Am I getting my math right?
Uh-huh.
There's more time has passed between that. We're making fun of teen movies from the 80s. Like 8 years more has passed since that movie came out. Where do you ever get weirded out by that kind of thing?
I do. We talked about it the other day on the Rocky Show. To me, 2005 is like yesterday, but that's 20 years ago.
Here's another one that I love. Think of a cover song that you enjoyed in your youth. Like, for example, I'll just pick an easy one. Aerosmith covered Come Together in 87 on their Permanent Vacation album. They covered the Beatles. So when I was listening to that when I was 12, 13 years old, I'm listening, the Beatles, that old band, the Beatles. And of course, Aerosmith is current rock and roll band. You know, they're covering the Beatles. How cool of them to cover the Beatles. Yeah, that's such an old song for them to cover. It sounds old. It's an old song. Now, more time has passed by far since the cover of the Beatles. Like, from now to when that album came out almost 40 years ago. You know what I'm getting at? Like, it's like the covers of songs that were covers of old songs back when we were young are now twice as old. The covers are twice as old now as when they were covering the song. I can't.
I think that the advent of the internet was such a line in the sand.
I think so.
Because so much did change from the 60s to the 80s.
Yes.
20 years.
It was like 50 years. The 60s to the 70s. We talked about it. But it bears repeating, especially on a show called The Retro Man, meaning you can't do it like in 40 years. They're not going to do a podcast on the 2010s.
No.
There's something, identity of the
very
decades
special
has ended.
about it.
The 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even 90s. There's something special about those 4 to 5 decade run where every decade had an identity of music, TV, film, cartoons, books, clothes.
100%. The latter half of the 20th century was just wild in so many ways.
And then now it's like if I wore an outfit in 2025 and went back to 2001 wearing the same outfit, people are like, hi. Not like, where did you get those futuristic clothes? But if I wore bell bottoms in 89, when they only wore them 10 years previous, people would be like, what are you doing wearing bell? Are you insane?
Well, I will say one thing that's
or
different
whatever
about your analogy is that you're not attempting to wear trendy clothes now. Like if you were to wear what is considered trendy now, meaning bell bottoms, not everybody wore bell bottoms. They were the trendy.
I did. When I was a kid, I wore bell bottoms. It was that was a symbol of the 70s was bell bottoms. Like in the 80s.
I see. Yeah. Like I'm picturing like this very 70s. Like
I see
what you're saying.
Hippie stuff. This the common kid wore bell bottoms to school.
Yeah.
Like the bell bottoms was the pants you wore.
Mm-hmm.
If I wore bell bottoms in 5th or 6th grade, I would be laughed out of school.
You're right. It's interesting that you say that because for women, your jeans, again, unless you're trying to be trendy and 15 years ago, you started wearing skinny jeans or something.
Oh my gosh.
But for women, the jeans really do still change trend wise. Skinny, flare, big pants, there's different ones that I think it's more pronounced now for women.
Yeah.
But
I just find it fascinating.
There's
real identities. There's real identities. And I just don't know what are kids today going to say. Oh, you remember back in the 2010s? What?
Nope. Mm-mm.
Sure,
not as defining. It's not. I agree. Retro made. Yeah. It is. I adored the music in the Breakfast Club, and I noted several instances where it really elevated either the emotion or what we were supposed to get from it, aside from it just being fun.
The intro.
Yeah.
Right away, you're just like, oh, here we go. 80s, Simple Minds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Keith Forsey was the guy who did the music. He's an English pop musician and record producer. He produced for Billy Idol, and then he co-wrote Flashdance, What a Feeling, songs for Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, and of course, that Simple Minds song, Don't You Forget About Me. It was originally offered to them, and they declined it.
Yeah, it's ironic.
Did you read about? Yeah, and then several other people, Brian Ferry, Billy Idol, several other artists passed the song, and then Simple Minds reconsidered. And I would bet quite a bit of money that they're really glad they reconsidered because it is it's known, it's the Breakfast Club song.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're happy cashing those checks.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you worry, they're fine about the royalties from that.
Don't you worry about them.
Yes. In the part at the end there, you probably read that too, when he's going la 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 la.
Mm-hmm.
The singer was like, "I'm sick of this song," and so he didn't want to sing lyrics or anything. So he just made it. He tried to sabotage the song by la la-ing at the end, and it turns out
he cared so little about it that he was just like la 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 la.
Yeah, but it turns out it's like that's the favorite part of the song for people is the outro.
I kind of thought maybe it had won more awards. The only award that it won was the MTV Movie and TV Awards, and not until 2005. So that would have what was that? 20 years later. 20 years later.
20 years later.
Silver Bucket of Excellence Award. Did you know that The Breakfast Club and Rocky have something in common?
Oh, did I?
Do you know where I'm going with this, Ryan?
Can you give me a hint? Can I get a hint?
Budget. It gives it away. The budget of the movie.
Okay, I know what the budget is. You're right. This crazy low budget. It's insane.
$1 million.
Which is even crazier because in theory, Rocky had a bigger budget.
Wasn't it about $1 million? Wasn't it even less than?
No,
because it was in 1970. Yes. Yeah, in the 70s. You're right.
So Breakfast Club had a lower budget. In theory.
Lower budget. It does make sense though, because there's only 7 characters. If you don't count the parents and stuff, it's all in one place. They're basically, it's just dialogue. There's not like special effects or,
I'm sure it's been done. So I'm saying something that I'm sure you're like, of course, Ryan, this has been done. But this is, I'm sure this has been done at school, college plays, drama class. This must have been revamped because this is a stage play. This whole thing's a stage play.
He wrote it as a stage. Yeah, you're right. He did.
He wrote it that way. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. He thought it would be easier for them. And these were like, there's no big names. At the time, they were up and coming actors, so they didn't have to pay them that much, too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, she was only 16, Molly herself. And so was
Mm-hmm.
Anthony.
Oh, let's talk about the ages, though.
I want to say about Anthony Michael Hall. I forgot, he really did give a surprisingly great performance. Sometimes when you play the nerdy kid or whatever, I'm the comedy, like he's the comedy relief, so to speak, character. He did a great job as the nerd. Sure, someone who's trying very hard and feels like he doesn't belong there or whatever. But then when he exposed himself in that round circle at the end about his own pressures, he goes, "Wait, you don't think I have pressure? You don't think I have?" I love that. And his crying was a little bit off the mark, but that's fine. He's a young actor. But
that kind of got to me a little bit. I was like, oh, that. But aside from that, I agree with you.
But you could argue too. Teenage boys are terrible criers. We're really bad at it. So if you want to get down to he acted the part, meaning like no teenage boy cries properly. So it was actually semi-accurate of somebody who's awkward and weird about crying. And he did a great job. And Stanley Kubrick, of course, noticed I shouldn't say of course, but Stanley Kubrick noticed and appreciated Anthony's acting in this film. And I feel the same way. It was actually a very strong performance. Probably the strongest of the cast, I think, Anthony's performance, really. And Stanley Kubrick wanted to get him for Full Metal Jacket.
That's right.
Anthony and Michael turned it down, even after some negotiations. And I don't know what his reasons were, but boy, Matthew Modine played the character that he turned down in that film. And he did a great job, Matthew did. But boy, I wonder if Anthony Michael Hall at any point goes, oh, shoot, I could have been in Full Metal Jacket. So I don't know.
Well, he probably did later because there was a point, and this gets into the discussion about both he and Molly Ringwald after a certain point. So they did a number of these teen movies for John Hughes, and John considered those two specifically as his muses. And I think he definitely wanted Molly in Some Kind of Wonderful and Anthony Michael Hall for maybe that movie too. I can't remember. And they were like, we don't want to keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And, he took it really personally.
Okay,
and
that's the John story again.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're
right.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. He, you can't really blame them. You wouldn't want to keep doing the same thing. Where I was going with that is that at that time, Anthony Michael Hall probably was kicking himself because he could have gotten out of that, teen movie pigeonhole.
That's why he didn't take it. I wonder if that's one of the reasons. Maybe he still felt he had a foot in one door. Because once he goes through that door of a Full Metal Jacket film, he's not going back to what he considers
true.
Teen movie.
You're right. Yeah. You're
I
right.
also heard it could have been a time thing too. If it was Stanley, if you sign on for Stanley, you're done for a year to a year and a half, almost 2 years. Like you're on his.
Oh, that's a big commitment for a teenager,
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that, folks, is a pretty significant contributing factor to why John Hughes transitioned from making these teen movies to more family-friendly kid movies. Did you know that? He
With
lost
this
his muse.
film?
He was really upset by that.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
He wanted his own
Molly
Mia
and
Farrow. He wanted his own Mia Farrow, is what it was.
I guess.
I
Well,
wonder if there was some sort of crush factor. Like, let's be honest. I wonder, and I don't mean anything inappropriate or untowards, but there's got to be some sort of, because that's what I think. If I'm speaking on a turn here, I think wasn't Mia Farrow Muse to Woody? Wasn't that the whole idea?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think so. You had mentioned ages. I did find the ages really interesting. So you're right. Molly was almost 17. She turned 17 while they were filming, and Anthony was 16. And they, I guess, started dating a little bit after filming this.
Who's they? Anthony and Molly?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I mean, because
cute.
they were both they were the only actual teenagers in the
Yes.
movie. Emilio and Allie were both 23.
23, okay. Yeah.
Judd was 25. Now get this. Okay. On that topic, you have a 25-year-old and a 16-year-old. He literally, Judd next to Anthony, he looks like he could be his dad. There's so much maturity difference between a 25-year-old man, and Judd was like a man,
That's
not
John. He's always had a baby face for years. He might have been a better pick.
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry, I'm gonna. Yeah.
He does have a baby face. So John Kapelos, who played Carl, the janitor, even though he's balding, he was only 3 years older than Judd Nelson. He was 28.
He was 28?
Yes. Meaning
The
he's
janitor?
closer in age. He's closer in age to like Emilio and Judd and Allie than the 5 characters playing teenagers.
Bless his heart.
Yeah.
Bless his poor heart. Bless his balding heart.
Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate. I mean, he does look youthful, like when they show his face. He's kind of a handsome man if he had.
Oh, yeah, he was fine. Now, was he actually the biological father of Anthony Michael Hall's character? I got confused. Was that his, or was his stepdad? I'm so
No, they're not
confused.
related at all. We'll get to that.
Am I
They're not
stupid?
related
Why
at all.
am I dumb?
Because he says they know each other. He's like, oh, hey, when Carl comes in and he's like, oh, hey, Brian, he's like, does your dad work here? Meaning what we maybe got from that is, oh, your dad maybe works here and that's how you know him. Your dad might be a teacher here.
The way I watched it, my brain just went, oh, that's your dad. He works here and I'll see you later type talk. And I got confused by all that. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, but you're probably not alone. There was a cut scene about why Brian is in detention was the flare gun that went off in his locker.
Yeah.
And there was a cut scene where Carl was involved in like cleaning it up or like he knew about like that's how they know each other is because of the flare gun in the locker thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But that scene was cut. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fair enough.
So the 5 teenagers in this movie in 1985, this movie comes out in 1985 in February, 40 years ago. They all play high school students. Literally 6 months later, in August of 1985, St. Elmo's Fire comes out, and they're all in that too.
Yeah.
Or not
yeah.
all of them, I should say Emilio Estevez, Judd Nelson, and Ali Sheedy, not all of them. But
That's right.
yeah.
And
So they're in their
age,
20s.
right?
Yeah. Because they play college graduates, like right out of college in St. Elmo's Fire. And interestingly enough, John Hughes recommended all 3 of them, including Judd Nelson, for their roles. So I don't know if he did that before. He had a bad time with Judd.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, bouncing back to the budget, $1 million. How much do you think this made worldwide? You maybe saw.
Well, actually, I saw the 1 million, but I didn't put that to memory. What it made, but I think it may. Well, maybe I'm cheating. I think it was like 85 million or something like that.
55.5. So that's a pretty decent return, eh?
It's amazing return. That's amazing. I would give $1 million for 55 in return.
100%. Yep. Yeah. Did you ever get detention in school?
Oh, yes. Are you kidding?
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I was, yes, I got detention, but I was that's what I mean. So, Ryan, but you said you were, you try to be, I was a class clown. That's what I got detention for disturbing the class. It was never for
Okay.
beating anyone up or stealing or starting fires. I always liked to make the students laugh. So I tell jokes. I would tell jokes that maybe weren't very politically correct even then, but I liked a good laugh. I loved making my classmates laugh. And so, or I just like talking to my neighbor. I don't have ADHD, but I get bored. I know it sounds maybe different, but it's different. Like I get bored. And so I'm listening to the teacher talk and blather on for 8 hours a day, Katie. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, stop talking
Maybe
about
you were
history.
just too advanced for your classes. That's what they say. A lot of kids who get in trouble for stuff like that, it's like they're not being challenged enough.
I'm not saying I'm smart, but I never felt challenged in the sense of, like I was just like, I'll study this later. I never did homework, but I still got good grades. So I was just that kind of, I like to have fun though. Like I enjoyed the human interaction of the world and of my friends. But so I tell jokes and things like that, but it wasn't like every day, all day. Like I wasn't like a moron about it. Like I was self-aware that I knew I couldn't keep doing this, but every now and then a joke was too good not to say something. Like I was saying, that's what she said jokes before, before the office
Michael.
guy. Yeah. Like I was doing that kind of humor that even back, it's very like innocent, but enough like guys. Sure. I mean, I had a joke. I'll tell you off air that I can't use. I'll tell you after. Remind me.
Okay.
That comes to mind. It was the first day of grade 9 social studies. It was Mr. Sheffer's class, and he had already had me for grade 8 socials, so he already knew me. And I was fooling around or whatever talking. He goes, I'll never forget. Congratulations, Ryan. You're the first student I've ever sent to the principal's office on the first day of school. And I'm like, yes. As I clapped as I walked out.
Now, was when was your detention? Was it on a Saturday?
Okay, so that's the other thing I want to talk about. It was after school. Yeah. And because I love how this teacher in the movies, I'm going to give you next Saturday. You're going to spend Saturdays. And I'm like, dude, you're just torturing yourself. Don't you want a weekend? I love how the teacher is bored, or the principal, whatever. He's bored out of his mind too. That you're actually just torturing yourself. Like you're actually that's what. Oh, go ahead, please.
There's an assumption that there is detention every Saturday anyway. If it's not Bender, it's someone else in there.
Well,
you know
no,
I mean?
it's
so
open.
Somebody
it's
has
available. Yeah, I guess they can have rotating
I assume
staff
that
takes
in
Saturdays,
a real school they would rotate teachers.
Well, that's what they did for
duty.
me. I knew this. I got a different teacher every time, so I'd have the hey, welcome back, Mr. Rebalkin. As I would go to detention, I'll never forget. It was room 116 in my.
Oh my god, that's wild.
So, and I then Katie, I was the only kid that ever got kicked out of detention. I was driving the teachers so crazy with my talking and humor and jokes, talking to the other kids in detention. She says, I can't deal with you. Just go home. So I got kicked out of detention.
They didn't just give you more detentions like Vernon did?
No, they just said,
I got you for the natural born life.
No, it wasn't like they didn't stack. It was always one punishment, one detention. It was kind of like, so I would have to go to detention after school. And yeah, it was like, and my friend who I'm still best friends with now, I run that channel with, he would come up to me after school. This is how bad it got. Am I walking home with you today?
Or do you have to stay?
Or do you have to stay for detention? Because he wasn't, bless him, he wasn't going to wait for me. This is like a half hour, 45 minutes or whatever extra. So I would just sit in class. I would just do my homework or write in my notebook or draw characters and comics or read a book. And I didn't care.
Ours was also after school. So a couple things with that. One is the real punishment would be you couldn't get detention because it's after school. And then that would make you late for whatever sport practice. Because at our school, sport practice was immediately following.
I got in trouble for that. I was more disappointed. I disappointed my coach. I played rugby, so that did happen where I'd come late to rugby. There'd still be going on,
and then
you'd
get punishment probably at rugby practice too. Did you have to run extra or something?
No, I was one of the better players. We didn't have a great team, but I was always a pretty big teenager, so it was kind of like I just showed up late. My rugby coach, Mr. Sheffield, rest in peace. He was a sweetheart of a guy. Anyways, he would just roll his eyes at me. He had
we would get punished more. You'd have to run more extra lines or laps or whatever. But then and B, you like that? One
Yeah,
and B.
one then B. Yeah.
I had never heard of Saturday detention. Is this a thing? Please, anyone
Well,
out
you're
there
the
in the
States.
world.
You're the States. I thought it was maybe a States thing because I'm
It
Canadian.
wasn't for, I mean, granted, again, I went to a Catholic school, but I'm very curious if Saturday detention exists anywhere. Please
So
let me
again,
know.
I feel like you're punching the staff as well, and
For-
the parents
yeah.
driving you to school for that really sucks. I think it's just
And
easier to do
it's
it
a
after
9-hour
school.
day. It's longer than a school day.
That's the part I found insane. I don't even know if that's legal.
It was like 7:30 or 7 to 4.
It's like
it seemed
breakfast to
like, 'cause-
lunch. Sorry, breakfast
yeah.
to supper, essentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, growing up, so this came out in 1985, but I probably didn't see it until, however many years
Sure.
it took for it to come on TV, and we had a taped version. So I grew up watching the edited for
Oh,
TV
That's no fun.
versions, so much so that when I finally saw the real version, I was like, oh, he says, for example, there's some extra footage in the edited for TV version.
Oh,
Because they had to cut so much else out. There's some extra footage in that version. And then when I watched the real version, I'm like, wait, where's that scene that's cut out? For example, when they collect money to go get sodas, and Brian thinks when Bender reaches his hand out, he thinks he wants a slap, like a high five or something. And then he is embarrassed and he gets him money. And there's a few other things like that. But also when Bender says, fuck you, after they have that whole, I got you for your natural born life, 2 months, the edited for TV version says, filled you. And I grew up watching that version.
Filled you?
Filled.
With what? That's even more
I don't know.
crass, if you ask me.
I don't know. This is what I'm saying. I grew up. So and there were so many things that I didn't understand because I wasn't a teenager. I was like a 7-year-old watching this.
Yeah, that's funny.
And totally
That's
didn't
funny.
understand.
I think I've only seen the theatrical. I never saw this on TV. That I can remember. I say that I'm sure I flipped through it, but like I think I've only fully watched this now 3 times my whole life. It's not like saw it when it first came out, saw it again out of curiosity, and saw it for the show, for this podcast. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's
why it hit
I don't
really
know,
hard
I'm
this
kinda
time
surprised.
as a fuller grown adult. I haven't. That's what I probably haven't seen this in 25 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I watch this at least once a year. I think I've seen this
Okay.
movie
Well,
50 times at least.
Okay. Well, I love it. Let me be clear. My one criticism about Judd, that's what I mean. That's why I felt it jarring after maybe 25 years not seeing the film. Oh, I don't know how much I like that performance. That's all. After 25 years of watching films and other performances, it struck me, objectively speaking, if I was the director, I might have told him to tone it down. I might have approached that part differently. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Was there any particular character's arc that you related to most?
Oh, that's a good question. I hate when people say that's a good question because you're just trying to collect your
how
thoughts.
they started the movie versus how they ended,
Well, I know that because I've seen it before and I know the storyline enough to know that, yes, they'll kind of change their views. They'll understand each other better. And I think what I found interesting and the most heartbreaking of the film, and might not really be answering your question, but the arc of all the characters that was mentioned by them was like, oh, I will not ignore you in the hallways. I promise you, I will not. And we never see the outcome of those promises, but having gone through high school and we do this, we promise so much when we're young and we're so romantic about our promises when we're young. I guarantee you they went back to normal, that they fell back into the tropes again of survival in the hallways. They go back to their tribe, as they would say. And not that they were mean to each other. There might have been a passing glance or a knowing nod in the hallway, but how I'll never ignore you in the hallway again and stuff like that.
Well, they don't actually say that. What's interesting is
I
say
swear,
the opposite.
I thought they said, I'll never ignore you. Am I missing the shoot?
Well, so in The Circle, we establish that Claire and Andy would both ignore, and even Bender, they're like, you would ignore us. She's like, yeah, I would say hi. I would be nice to your face. And as soon as you walked off, I would, make fun of you. So my friends didn't think I really liked you. And then, but they continued to develop the friendship over the time. And so we make an assumption. Plus,
that's
then
what it was.
there's some coupledom,
I
right?
thought
There's
Anthony
two
said
couples
it.
now. Well, Anthony said, I would never do that to you. Me and Allison are better people than you because I would never do that to you. And Claire says, that's because you look up to us.
Oh, that's right. My bad. Okay, I thought I was taking it as, okay, I misinterpreted the two different.
No, it's
okay.
just that the Allison doesn't have friends and Brian's friends are, they're not the popular kids. And so, but then, the rest of the movie, we see them become closer and better friends. And so there's an assumption, especially considering that Claire and Bender,
right.
they get together, and so do Emilio. I always do this, Andrew and Allison.
Sure. Okay, so what I'll say about that, funny enough, my least favorite transition, maybe that's better answer to your question. I apologize to our dear listeners. I misunderstood the "I'll never ignore you in the hallway" topic. I thought that was a future statement. I got you. Yeah, I remember. I liked Ali Sheedy's character better. I didn't like her dress. Her makeover was terrible. I liked it better.
Oh, you didn't think she looked beautiful?
Well, I thought she
really did look pretty.
I would have dated the other version better. I was more attracted in a funny way to the bangs in her face. Now I know
you couldn't see her face.
Well, it's this might have been the film that started that trope, right? Of the 80s, Yeah, take off the glasses, do her hair. Now she's pretty. She's been there the whole time.
It did start that. But yeah, it really more of it. And that's what Andrew says. He's like, oh, I can see your face now. Like, sure, I didn't realize how pretty you were.
But I saw the face throughout the movie. She's there. I kind of liked her look better than the
that's interesting.
The pretty and pink look did nothing for me. I don't know, but that's just funny. No, I mean, I guess I'll go back to Anthony. I just really liked that moment again in that circle when he broke down and talked about how he feels pressure too. I think that was a great arc that we see. Even though he's succeeding, because we saw Judd's character be like, "Oh, this is your family. Oh, he's such a great kid. He's such a great kid. Don't we have a great kid? Hugs and kisses the husband and wife." And he's criticizing a stable home. Ironically, like that's a bad thing, which I'd argue it's not a bad thing. But the kid still says, "No, I still have pressure and undue pressure." And then we get to the whole suicide talk, which is like, "Whoa, this is none of these guys none of these other characters talked about ever taking their own life." But here we have the one person everyone thinks, "Oh, his home life is great. All this stuff. He's smart in class." But he has so much pressure and expectations, ironically, though they're good expectations. He's feeling like he can't measure up, that if I don't succeed, I'm better off dead. And that's obviously the wrong message, too, that he's getting from his parents. So it's a fascinating study, really.
It is. And again, the movie balances, like, that's heavy shit. And then they balance it with the humor of the flare gun and how it's
ironically,
funny.
that would kill you.
Well, I wondered.
No, I'm telling you right now, you should
close up.
Yes, and I thought I get it. It's a flare gun. They should have said something like it was a pellet gun, or something like a potato gun, or something like that. That would have been more humorous because you can't kill yourself with a potato gun. It would sting and bleed and embed in your skin. Sure, but it wouldn't.
I don't even know what a potato gun is. I've never even
shoots potato. But it shoots potato pellets like an air BB gun. It shoots potato pellets.
Pieces of potato?
Yeah, you'd actually get a potato, shove the muzzle of the handgun into the potato, crunch it around, and then you shoot the potato pellet out of the gun.
I've never even heard of this. That's hilarious.
Anyways, so flare gun to the head, do not do that, folks.
No.
It will, if it doesn't kill you, it'll burn your face quite a bit. The damage is, oof, I would not recommend it.
So he got detention for that.
Which is weird. You should get mental health help.
Exactly. But I think it was because it ended up like damaging school property, because it showed his like burned out locker, and he got detention for that.
Sure.
Andrews, I thought, watching it now, like especially how he describes him torturing this kid, this hairy kid, that's like straight up assault. Wouldn't that land you in prison and not detention? Andrews' reason for being in detention?
For what? For the tying up the bum?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he said pieces of skin came off with the hair.
Yeah, it was a little bit. Yeah, sure. Probably not as much as he was saying, because this is like a waxing with duct tape, I guess. But no, jail. No, I'll say what. Here's interesting.
But that's like an assault, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're right. This is where our 2025 glasses are looking at 85 behavior. Hazing in sports was commonplace. It was never criminal back then. It is now, and they've really. Well, I say that, but I don't want to speak out of turn,
Yeah,
but I would dare
okay.
say I think hazing still happens. It still happens.
Yeah.
Hazing in sports, especially male sports, in all honesty, is a real thing. There's many stories. Go to Reddit, go anywhere. It's a real thing. And boys are brutal with each other. So
Fair point. Fair point. Now, originally there was supposed to be 3 girls and 3 boys. So what stereotype do you feel like was missing? Or is there one that you can think of that you would
great
add?
question. I kind of wish I wish you asked me earlier. Because that's a great question. Let me let me delay the answer by saying that's a great question. Oh, that's a fascinating
so we've got
idea
the jock, the popular girl,
yeah.
mentally.
What would be
kids.
Anthony's girl, so to speak? What would be the
Right.
You could almost argue for him.
Theater kid, maybe.
Yeah, but a theater kid and a nerd would get along. It's kind of a nerd.
No, I know, but they're different. He's in the physics club. The physics club.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to think too, what stereotype of high school was not represented. Yeah, I'm saying theater kid. You guys out there,
kid's not bad.
What stereotypes are we missing? Because there was supposed to be a third person.
Yeah,
or a third girl, I mean.
You could have the one foreign student. There you go. The foreign exchange student.
Speaking of 16 candles. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, interesting. That's a good question. Let us know, folks.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk one-liners. Let's talk the epic dialogue. What are some things I laughed out loud in a few places, or just memorable lines? What do you recall?
You're gonna have to lead this one. I don't have any to memory, to be honest with you. But go ahead and start, and I'll.
So one of the things that because it was so 80s, because I can remember butt face as an insult cracked me up.
See, I knew you'd trigger my brain when he said "eat my shorts."
Mm-hmm.
That started with that. I don't know if that was ever said before. I wonder if that term on film media was said because of course that was attributed to who later on?
Bart Simpson.
That's right.
So because I did research for the trivia questions for all of the time capsule segments, Eat My Shorts did become popularized in the mid-80s as a saying.
Yes. So Bart, though, but I would say if you were to ask me before this movie rewatch, right? Like I said, it's been a while. Ryan, who popularized the term "eat my shorts"? I would answer right away, Bart Simpson.
Sure, as a character, but like in
so what I'm saying is, this is a big film. It's an iconic film through the decades. So even before Simpsons came out, I think it was '89. That's what I'm getting at. So I'm wondering, had this not been said in this film, would Bart Simpson be saying "eat my shorts" in the animation series? I'm just curious what the carryover would have been. That's
good question.
Yeah,
that's a good question. There are just so many memorable lines and one-liners from this movie that one maybe didn't stand out as much. But I laughed out loud at Buttface. I laughed out loud at Dick. Rich. Will milk be made available to us? I love that. Brian saying he has a girlfriend that lives in Canada.
Yeah,
yeah. That's like a trope though in like dorky American kids trying to claim that they, aren't a virgin. They're like, oh, well, I have a girlfriend. She lives in Canada.
She lives in Japan. Yeah.
Yeah.
The line when Andrew asks, "What do you need a fake ID for?" and he says, "So I can vote." That was Anthony Michael Hall improv. He ad-libbed that. Yeah. That's a great ad-lib, by the way, because it totally fits his character. It shows that he's thinking like his character.
But it made him 68 instead of 18.
Yeah. I love that.
Slip her the hot beef injection. I remember not understanding what that meant as a kid. I was like, what? I don't get it.
It's a sandwich.
This ain't no rest home. Love that one. And when they're talking about the virginity, and Bender says to Brian, "Well, Brian, it doesn't sound like you're doing any business." Then when they're having lunch, we have to have a discussion about the lunch. Bender slaps Brian's hand out of the way when he's like getting his stuff out of the bag and like looking at, well, what are we having for lunch today? He slaps his hand when he is looking at the apple juice and he says, "I can read. Without trigonometry, there'd be no engineering. Without lamps, there'd be no light." like these are again
Yeah,
half of those
the
are
whole movie is
Bender.
just it's insane. Yeah, a lot of the strong lines of dialogue was good. Again, my least favorite. It doesn't. I enjoyed. He was great. He was great for the record. He was great, but it was just I found myself cringing a little bit more than I thought I was going to with some of the delivery of some of the scenes. There you go. That's probably what it was.
Vernon says in this that he makes $31,000 a year.
Oh yes, I did the math on this.
For America, like here, that's about $92,000.
Yeah.
So is he the principal or the vice principal, or is he a teacher?
It's a pretty good wage for a teacher.
It is. Now, I agree. I think, so I was reading, there's some controversy about this. I had always thought he had to either be the principal or the vice principal. And then there's been some talk about that he's not, that he's actually just a teacher, and that there's some evidence that points to that when he says, I've been teaching for 22 years, that his office is adjacent to the hallway. He has a girly calendar on the wall. Principals wouldn't spend their Saturdays in detention class. He would,
so vice principal
access
is very
to
likely.
the confidential.
There's also senior staff. There's also senior staff. It's not like he could be a senior faculty member. It's not like it's just teacher, vice principal, principal. He could be he could be a school faculty of some sort of member, or some sort of senior staff member, the bosses of the teachers, let's say, or something like that. So who knows? I would say he's not in his 22 years teaching. He's just saying this is how long he's been in the business, or how long he taught before he got the job. It's like saying I'm 22 years in the military right now. Actually, I'm 20. But I've done different jobs in the military. I've done different things. So he's just blanket statement. I've been in the school system for 22 years.
So there was some talk about him being a teacher, but I am 100% convinced that he had to be vice principal or principal.
Yeah.
He has an office. I don't think just regular teachers have offices.
No, they usually make their classroom as their office.
Right.
Where they teach is they have their desk and everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Vernon was in charge of Saturday detention. I don't know this to be true, but some say in an American high school, the vice principal is usually the school's disciplinarian.
Yeah.
This would explain his unpopularity with the students. He has access to confidential files, which is something
that only
administration. I know. So that was evidence both ways. But here's the kicker for me. Andrew's offense, when they're in the circle, Andrew says, oh yeah, something about he got in trouble for it. And then when they sent me to Vernon's office, so they wouldn't send you to a teacher's
I'm
office.
all on board.
Yeah.
I think this is not, to me, it's not even a question. He's vice or principal. But
okay.
I
always assumed that too.
The scene that threw me off was when the janitor was calling out for going through confidential files. So my question is, if the principal or vice principal can't look at these files, then who can? Why do they
maybe
exist
it was
in
just
the school?
Maybe it was just he shouldn't be poking around.
That doesn't
in
them. No. It doesn't make sense. Like confidential just means yes, it's the student's history. It's their history. It's their resume of schooling and behavior. So if the principal and or vice principal doesn't have authorization to look, who in the school would? It wouldn't just be the math teacher or the gym teacher. The person that should have overall access to the student's history would be, especially the people that are there to discipline them on the weekend. I should know more about them. I should know what I'm dealing with. In fact, looking up, he was doing it for nefarious reasons. But if I was there and I was in a disciplinary person, I would love to know. In fact, when I taught basic training, we had access to their history, like the students or the civilians before they wrote a resume on themselves. And I would read them, whatever they wanted to share. It was for us to read because I wanted to know. I would treat people differently, knowing some of their background. They lost a parent, let's say, or they had a member in the military. So you have all these different backgrounds of what are they bringing to the table as a new recruit. So I don't get why the janitor was calling him out for looking at files when if it's not him, then that would be the only argument that he's just an average quote unquote teacher, that he shouldn't be looking through confidential files.
Well, I think there's a slight distinction. I assumed because he says, oh, Mr. Tierney, mental health issues. So I think he was looking at the teacher's files because he said, he was looking at Mr.
I think
Tierney's
it's the student
file.
finals.
It's a file cabinet, but he specifically says, "Oh, Mr. Tierney, history of mental illness," but you could argue that he refers to the students as
Oh yeah, Bill did all the
Mr.
time, Mr. Rebalkin.
Yeah.
I get that all the time when I was a
Right.
kid. Oh, Mr.
So you
Rebalkin,
could
trouble
argue
again.
either way.
So it's just again, if it's not him, who's allowed to? If it's not the principal and vice, maybe it's
Right.
just the principal. Maybe it's just the principal, and then that's why the vice principal. But that doesn't. If you're vice, you have the same access as the principal in their absence.
I think
So-
Carl was just calling him out because he was up to no good. Maybe.
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
that's what it was. I know, but
Yeah.
I love to get in the weeds of this stuff. I love it because it's written for a reason. That's why I do it. Because the author of the movie wrote this and filmed it for a reason. So I want to know why, and if it doesn't make sense, why didn't you catch it? We just did in 5 minutes. How come you didn't? You had to set up the lighting, set up the scene. They had to rehearse their lines. At no point did someone say, "I don't get it. Why is this a problem?" He's looking at the files. Somebody should have said something. It's weird. I don't know. All right.
I do notice especially back in the day, women, virginity was seen as this big virtue, particularly in the 80s.
This was not my
But they
experience.
are so obsessed with Claire's virginity.
Well, everyone and Anthony Michael Hall. Are you not?
You're right.
So it's boy and girl. I'll give him credit for that. They harangued these poor students who hadn't yet had. You haven't had vaginal intercourse at the age of 15 yet. What's wrong with you? Whoa, easy. Whoa,
particularly, there was several different instances, like 3 different places in the movie where they're talking about Claire's virginity. And even one time when Bender was really trying to fire her up and he's like, over the bra, under the sweater.
Yeah, I know.
And she's like, are you trying to make me puke? I thought that was really weird. Why would that make you puke? Like, why would you be disgusted by that?
No, I think because she's disgusted by him. And she's envisioning him doing it to her. Trying to make me puke. Like, you're going to do this to me? You're gross. If it was Emilio's character, that would be a different story. So what I found, this is what I find, maybe it's a side, but I was around this time. I went through high school. Like, I graduated in 93. I will not confirm or deny my virginity in 93. But I was religious, but nobody made fun of me. It was never really talked about. And I don't remember people in the hallway, hey, we got a virgin over here. Like, it wasn't really some kids. Yeah, they're kids getting together. You knew about it. Yeah, they've been dating for 10 months. They probably done things. But then if you weren't dating anyone, you just assume, well, a guy or a girl doesn't have a girlfriend or boyfriend. I assume they're probably not having sex with the family dog. Like, it's just.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean,
but this is
you're
weird
right.
though. People assume that not everyone's hooking up. I graduated with 500 students. Everyone was hooking up. Some people just weren't having sex. It wasn't like everyone had a partner. You just mathematically, not everyone had a partner.
No, it is a weird, like, these teen movies really focus on it. Plus 90, that's like literally 10 years later. Maybe there was, some, but I think particularly for Claire, because she's the pretty popular one. And, and then they're like, well, or are you a tease? And they're like, well, you're screwed either way because you're either a prude or a slut.
Well, that's why Elson Sheedy's character was like, yeah, I do everyone all the time, everywhere. That's kind of what are you going to do about it? If you just kind of own it, even though she didn't, but she just said it to say, okay, fine, I'm a whore. Next. Like, it's almost.
But it doesn't matter. The idea is, it doesn't matter for her because she's a quote unquote nobody. Nobody cares what she does. I mean, that's, that's the idea. That's Claire fair. Is on this pedestal.
Yeah. Would he like her better? Oh yeah, I had 5 guys with me yesterday. Like, I don't want to be crude, but it's like, what would she have said where he would have backed off and said, oh yeah, I've been having sex since I was 12. What's it to you?
That was Allison's point. You're screwed as a woman in that situation. You're screwed either way because you're a prude if you haven't, and you're a slut if you have. Right? I mean,
or you say,
sadly, I've just
been waiting for you. I just been waiting for you. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Oh, But
and
you're
even
right.
within the movie,
you're right.
There's the double standard because it's assumed that men do it. And then when she finds out that Brian's a virgin, she's like, I think it's okay for a guy to be a virgin. Well, fucking of course.
That's what I mean. We need to have a partner. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong. Obviously, you could lose your virginity. Well, obviously, same-sex relationships, you lose that is losing your virginity. But the point, you get what I'm saying. The point is that if I lost my virginity at 14, well, I probably did it with someone did it with me. So why is like who's that girl? We got to track her down and get the. It's just funny how old men aren't virgins, but old women are. So who are the men having the one girl?
I mean, here's the thing. And back in the day, it's okay for you to like a nice young man to, waste himself on like some slutty girl that doesn't matter. But when he's going to marry someone,
well, she better be pure as the virgin snow. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
So I got my practice in, but I'll show you a thing or two on our wedding night. Don't you worry.
Yeah, it's gross. It's gross.
I'll take care of you, honey. I'll take care of you. It's adorable.
Okay, well, which one of the lunches? I love the lunch scene.
Sushi.
Which one? That would be yours. But in high school.
Oh, sorry. In high school, yeah. Okay, for me, it was the peanut butter and jam sandwich with the juice box. For sure. No, juice box? Are you kidding me? That's spoiled. I don't think I was given a drink. I think I was told to drink from the fountain as a kid. Drink juice boxes. I shouldn't out my parents like that. I don't know. We weren't that well off, but definitely it was sandwiches, an apple, orange, homemade granola bar. Yeah.
Oh, what a nutritious. So you really were Brian Johnson. What do all the food groups are he makes fun of it.
They were.
All the food groups are represented.
That was me. Yeah, he would have made fun of my lunch, even though he would have liked to have had it at the same time.
That's awesome. The Captain Crunch in Allison's sandwich was her ad lib because she thought it would, the crunch sound would be good. Yeah.
Yeah. I love Captain Crunch. It chews up your mouth, but boy, as a kid, that was like the Captain Crunch cereal as a kid was like gold.
That sandwich would you have, it probably wouldn't be that bad.
It's just
Pixie
so dry.
Sticks, but there was probably mayo or something because she throws
I think it was just bread and was it not just it looked like it was just bread in the cereal.
Was it? Okay.
So to me I was like, oh, that is a dry bite of food. There's no liquid.
Pixie sticks or sugar sticks and Captain Crunch between bread.
No thanks.
Okay. What would you do for $1 million? In this circle, they ask. That's what started the circle conversation is what would you do for $1 million? Would you show up to school naked? Like things like that.
No. Yeah, everyone has a number. I know it's funny. It's the naked thing is always a thing. Like you ever watch, it's not true, but you ever watch Arrested Development?
Not regularly, but yeah.
There was a character who he was never nude. That was his character. He was never nude. Like even like at home at the shower, he's wearing shorts. He has a never nude policy, but I'm not like that. But it always makes me laugh. So streaking, I was never interested in that. So I don't know what I would do for $1 million, boy.
What's funny is I don't think I would have, $1 million, maybe I would for $1 million, but in high school, you care so much about what people think about you and those 4 years.
Yeah.
But I will say I would now 100% like be in public nude for $1 million. I would. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you mean by nude? Like, what do you do? I'm not anything crass, but like, what
are you I don't
walking?
know.
How long are we talking about for?
That's a good question and parameters. But I would walk outside of my house and maybe walk up and down my sidewalk.
Your hair has to be behind your back, though. You have very long hair. You can't pull the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. Yeah. Because actually my hair would cover.
Yeah.
Like in Splash, my hair would cover.
Yeah, Splash. That's right. Yeah. So you'd have to put the hair back. This is not PG. This is a R-rated nudity. Okay.
So you wouldn't walk outside of your house?
I'm a baby. Even if you offer me $1 billion, I'd be tough. I'm scared. I'm scared to walk around nude.
$1 billion? Yes, you would.
Maybe that's I don't know. $1 million? I don't think $1 million. I think it'd have to go higher than $1 million. I don't know. Okay. I'm so boring. I know this is a fun game, and I'm not trying to tap out of the game because it is just a game. I could easily, I'll do it for $1 million just to end the game, but I'm so easily embarrassed by that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think I might slash the neighborhood tires for $1 million instead, or something like that. Maybe a little more on the criminal side of behavior than embarrassing myself, if that makes sense.
I have a feeling all of the European listeners are like bashing their heads against something because it's as I understand it. Even when I would go to travel, like you could like baths. Even here, there's like nude. You go to like a hot springs or whatever, and or actually, I have done topless on a beach in Mexico for no money. But again,
Well-
it was, but I wasn't the only one. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I guess for men, I always say, I'm speaking as a guy, that's all I have is that thing down there. That's it. Like,
Mhm.
meaning, because, if you have small breasts, big breasts, men usually don't care. Like, we're not, oh, those are small. Hey, they're breasts. We don't really care, small versus big. But for men, yeah, for the record, it's 10 inches.
You're like, no,
but-
lest you think.
No, but the point is, for a guy, that's all. Once
You're
that's
right.
exposed, it's like, that's it.
That's valid. So do you think they go back? What happens on Monday? There's couples. What happens particularly? Is this just
Doesn't
a
last.
one-time, just a
Yes.
one-off experience?
I think
It's a one-off.
that's why we don't see it. I think that's why we don't see it, because I think it'd be too hard for us to see. I think the audience would be just sad to see that. Oh, it's just because that's teenage life. I think that's when we go, because there was talk about reinvestigating the characters every 10 years type talk
Mm-hmm.
to see how they've advanced or whatever, and that'd be an interesting case study. But I think as far as high school goes on the Monday following, that's what there'd be the cursory nod. The following Monday, barely a nod. 2 months down the road, you're just with your groups and your friends and your clubs and your sports and your whatever. You just move on.
I think so too. It was
That's
just
funny.
a one-off.
Before I forget,
cool day.
John Hughes wrote like what would happen to the characters later in life. It's
Mm-hmm.
funny what he wrote for Molly Ringwald's character. She did in real life.
Did get fat.
No, not fat. She didn't say fat. I think she said kids. Because Molly's not fat in any way, shape, or form. But I think she might have had children. But said that she would get her face done and a boob job.
Two boob jobs and a facelift later, which is the reason I said, did she get fat, is because that's what Bender assumed would happen.
Oh, yeah. John Hughes wrote like the characters,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of ironic that he kind of called Molly, and I'm not shaming her. Great, you got a boob, but she actually did get breast augmentation work done and work done on her face, just like they said the character would do.
In real life. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Molly did. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's no party scene, no guys drinking beer, no bare breasts. We kind of talked about it at the beginning, but despite all of that and the studios wanting that, that's your typical teen movie. This is so far outside that. And then it was also shot in sequence, which is different.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool. I like that though.
I think everybody knows, but John Hughes has a cameo in this. He picks up Brian at the end. That's John Hughes in the car
And
picking up
drops him
Brian.
off and the drop off. But yeah, it's the dad
No,
in the cars.
the drop off is his real mother and sister. His mom drops him off.
That's right.
And
It's
the
dad that picks him up.
actresses who play his mom and his sister in the car are his real mother and real sister.
That's right. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Should we do some castings? Let's see what else. Carl the janitor, Rick Moranis was originally cast as him.
That would have been okay, but it would have been too, like, he's just especially a bit too silly. I like the janitor that was cast. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Bill Murray was briefly considered, and same with
Ugh.
John Candy.
Well, I love John Candy.
But John Candy did go on to.
He would have been good because he can do that drama. He would have done the. He would have been good because he can do those heartfelt moment talks too. Yeah.
He did go on to work with Hughes a couple of times. So Home Alone, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Uncle Buck.
Yeah. Let's see. Hughes really did want Emilio Estevez, but if he couldn't, he was considering Michael J. Fox, Jim Carrey, Tom Cruise, Matthew Broderick, and Rob Lowe.
Oh, they all would have worked.
Yeah.
To a degree.
For
They're all
Claire, Jodie Foster, Robin Wright, Laura Dern. Laura Dern, I guess, she auditioned for both of the female parts. And Brooke Shields was considered for Allison also.
Okay. Jodie Foster.
That's interesting.
I told you, I think before, she's she's my all-time favorite actress.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So she would have been too good. I hate to say it. It's just, she could have done it, nailed it, but she's beyond that. She would have been beyond that type of film.
This might be a hot take. I don't have anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with Molly Ringwald.
No, there's nothing wrong with her.
In this particular role, I see someone like Robin Wright, that more classically beautiful,
especially 80s.
stuck up. Molly Ringwald is cute, but she's not your.
Yeah. I think Ali
standard
Sheedy
beauty.
then, why did I say
Mhm.
then? But I said if I was in that room and they said, Ryan, pick a girl to take to the prom right now, go. After meeting them for the day, I would have taken Ali Sheedy's character, both looks wise and personality wise. Like I wouldn't have been
Mhm.
interested in Molly Ringwald's character.
Mhm.
Like just objectively as a guy to take a girl to the dance type thing. So yeah, I agree with you. They should have gotten the blonde, classic cheerleader bombshell type actress. Yeah. It would have fit the 80s trope without being too silly. But yeah, that's the girl that would be popular at school, would be the blonde haired type cheerleader.
She works in something like a 16 Candles because she wasn't Miss Popular, you
Right,
know?
right.
Yeah.
And I never saw
Mhm.
Molly as that. I always saw her
Yeah.
as the cute, but not, yeah. So it's interesting. But maybe she's just really sweet, and that's why everyone likes her too. That's, I think, what we're getting at. She seemed like she was a nice person-ish. She wasn't a bitch, so there was that.
Yeah.
So maybe she just was cute enough and pretty enough that she was popular amongst her own peers, and so she was raised up even higher because she was actually not a bad person. Yeah.
Do you know what the marijuana that they smoke actually
Yeah.
was? What,
Right, oregano or something.
oregano.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let's see. The library it was a real school, but it was the gymnasium of Maine North High School. And it was like made as a set specifically for this. The dandruff that Ali Sheedy shakes onto
Yeah.
her drawing. Do you know what it was?
Yeah. Yeah. Parmesan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's like a ton. I could go on and on about some of the
Oh,
trivia.
yeah. The
but
trivia is crazy. I saw it on IMDb as well. I was like, holy smokes. It's like tons of trivia. It's
tons.
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on for another hour talking about it, but I
But
don't want to
it's
bore you
fascinating.
all.
No,
Yeah.
it's true. We don't, well, it's too late for that. That ship has sailed, as they say.
It is. So where does this rank for you with John Hughes movies?
Oh, I'd have to say, well, off the top of my head, let's start with top 5 for sure. Top 3 for sure. Now we're battling that with Vacation
Okay.
and Uncle Buck. I really like Uncle Buck. That was going to be one of my
Those
picks.
are good.
Because I love John Candy so much, but it's not number one. I can't help it. I love Vacation. That's my Breakfast Club. I've seen Vacation numerous
Okay.
times. I love the comedy of Vacation. Classic Chevy Chase. It has Anthony Michael Hall in it as well, funny enough.
Yeah.
And Juliet
Mhm.
Lewis, which I love. She's great in that.
Mhm.
I just love that. It's so stupid. It has John Candy at the end. It's such a fantastically stupid film that, yeah, it's hard for me to not make that probably the number one film for me from John Hughes. But this is a fantastic film. I had forgotten how good this film is. Like, objectively speaking, again, watching this for the podcast after 20 odd years not seeing it, it's like, boy, this really is a good film. This is just a very good film.
I concur. The Breakfast Club has been called the quintessential
Gotcha.
1980s film. And for me, it is 100% my favorite John Hughes movie.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's in I'd have to categorize them by genre, but it's in my top 5 movies of all time. If you have to go to an island and you can only bring 5 movies, this would be one of them for me.
Fair.
I adore The Breakfast Club. So I'm so glad that you picked it because I did kind of want it to be the first episode of season 2.
Yeah,
also, it works out because
4
when
years.
this is released, it will be at the 40th anniversary of The
That's
Breakfast
crazy.
Club.
And I just want to say, I totally agree with everything you're saying about the film. And I'll say with teen movies, that's the thing. Now we're talking about teen movies. This is strictly a teen kind of movie, like teen character movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which one beats it. I don't know what teen character centric film beats this film. That's where I'll put. So I like.
Okay.
Vacation is a more enjoyable. I get a kick
different.
out of it. Like, yeah, it's nostalgic too. Objectively, this is a better film, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about nostalgia, what I grew up with, and I'm a big comedy fan, as you know. So, but as far as teen film goes, boy, I don't know off the top of my head what would beat this is the godfather of teen films. There you go.
Ooh, well said, Ryan. Well, listeners, tell me what you think about The Breakfast Club. Where does it rank in all of these different types of categories? John Hughes movies, teen movies, movies in general. It's interesting that you hadn't seen it in so long. So that's a different take. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it as much as you did. I really could go on for 2 more hours talking
Sure.
about this movie.
Let's do it. All right. I need 2 more hours.
But sadly, we must now return to present day reality until the next Retromade episode. Ryan, please do tell us, because everyone loves to hear from you, what should we look forward to? What's next? What do you got coming out on some of your shows?
Again, check out the Worst of the Best podcast. By the time this episode drops, I think the next episode that I record with my brother will be recorded, and if not already done. There's a myriad of topics. Just check out the feed. You'll see a topic that'll interest you, and I invite you to listen to even the ones you might not find of interest, because you might find it interesting to listen to. Check out, if you're a Rocky fan, yes, of course, check out the One More Round Rocky Series podcast. And it's almost done, an Ed Zwick film podcast. It's a miniseries podcast. We've done 12 of the 13 films. I've had rotating guest hosts. Katie, you've been on 3 of those episodes on that show. That's a fantastic journey. Yeah, check out the Zwick's Flicks, the Ed Zwick podcast as well.
It's gone by very fast.
I know, very fast, yeah.
Oh, P.S. I need some reviews, especially since it's the new season. You don't even have to write how great you think I am, even if you do. Just write gobbledygook in the review. Just kidding. You can say that you love John Hughes. You can say anything you want, but please give me a 5-star review. And with that, until next time, be kind, rewind.